I did have to redistribute it because I saw that some people had it and some people didn't. But the page starts out with like Z miscellaneous WU, and it's warm up number 1. Looks like there's 8 problems, but it's really just the same 4 problems twice. I chose these just to kind of make sure we summarize things that we did last week. I do have a second warm-up. I'm going to save it for another day that kind of focuses mainly on the trig. I want to kind of focus on the algebra ones so far. But I do want you to try those before I just jump into it. If I'm looking at these, I would probably argue that numbers 1 and 2 are pretty straightforward. I expect almost everyone to get number 1 and 2 correct. 3 takes a little bit more work to get to the answer. And then 4 is a tricky one. Some people today have been able to figure out, but some of them, like, I wouldn't be offended if you really got stuck on number 4. But number 4 is kind of a tricky one. But again, I expect most people get 1 and 2. 3 takes a while to get to the answer, and then 4 is kind of tricky. But take some time to do that one. I do want to give you a chance to try all 4 of them before I go over it. And then basically I'll give you some instructions of things you can work on today. And yeah, so y'all can go ahead and start that, and then we'll regroup in a little bit.
It says the page is locked.
It says it's locked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I tried copying it and pasting it, and it still was locked.
It says it's locked. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, here's an unlock, but why is y'all's locked? Oh, yay, OneNote. Let's see, if I select unlock, but that probably didn't unlock y'all's individual ones, did it?
Also,
I'm guessing that probably didn't work. It wouldn't be that easy. Dang it. What can I do?
entire notebook saying? Oh wait, no. No, it's just the.
Hey guys, so for some reason it's showing up as locked in your OneNote, so I'm about to just redistribute everything I did earlier. So you're probably gonna end with 2 copies. Sorry in advance. Let me make sure they're not locked.
Yeah, all of the 20 below is locked.
Okay. Let me just resend it all out. So you're about to get 2 copies of it. That sucks, but it is what it is. Finger crossed that that's gonna work. Of course, last time I distributed pages out my OneNote first, so we'll see. So yeah, we having a good Monday so far?
Mostly it's not.
Oh gosh.
Did you get quarantine for the baseball?
Those of you at home, if you're wondering what's going on, my OneNote's just thinking, so we're just waiting on that.
That's such.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. Yeah, he told me. I knew that was the end.
And yeah, guys, we're still waiting. I'm waiting. Has anything new shown up in y'all's OneNote yet? No, of course not. Why would technology not work?
Do you have an extra marker I could use?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was such a hard test to study for. We definitely did do it.
I would say screw it, but now my OneNote won't let me do anything else. There it goes. All right, so my OneNote says it's distributed. It might be, might not. Oh, now my OneNote's frozen. There we go. All right, so whether you can write in OneNote or not, we'll just say try those 4 problems somewhere. It might be showing up in a second, it might not. But I do want to talk about these 4, but I do also want you to have a chance to try those 4 first. Again, the first 2 should be pretty straightforward. That third one just takes some work to get to the answer. And then number 4 is honestly somewhat tricky. So take a few moments to try those. And that's basically going to be my plan for today. But we'll say right now it's 2:41. We'll regroup at like 2:46 to go over them. Yeah.
I was thinking, I remember saying that I guess in this section.
Yeah, so beginning that. Do something really obnoxious.
That's all there is to that.
And what I'm gonna fix is you just have to X out of it completely,
That's just like.
and then go back into Teams and reopen it. Close it. And then go to Teams, and like the class notes tab, and then open it and out. And then just like reconnect all the stuff.
I just like am looking at the problems and I just open the page. I haven't.
I might end up with like 5 copies of it.
I remember the last
It's
it's
like-
also, because things were missing up with that. It would let me edit it.
I'm definitely this one. They're looking during this one.
Yeah,
Yeah. But this one's already.
that one right there. That second one, it's a mono, so I just divide everything by the mono.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about how.
Give you about 2 more minutes and then we'll go over these 4.
Distributed. It distributed and it's not locked.
Remind me why are we both not personally. so as we're getting ready to go over these, just to kind of walk you through what goes on in my head when I see a problem like this. Some major things that I think about, like I look at the denominator. If my denominator is raised to the first power, that is a clue that I'm potentially going to use a natural log rule. I don't want to say that means we're always going to use the natural log rule, but that's a big clue that we are going to use the natural log rule. So if I'm looking at this first one, I see in that denominator that's going to be 2x plus 5. That's technically all raised to the first power. Do need to do u substitution, so u would be that entire denominator. Often when we're doing the natural log rule, we're going to let u be the entire denominator. So u would be that 2x plus 5. U prime would then just be 2. So if I'm doing the u substitution, that becomes 1 over u. Dx is du over u prime. Same thing as pulling a 1/2 out in front and integrating 1 over u du. What's the integral of 1 over u? Well, it's the natural log of the absolute value of u plus c. That 1/2 is going to carry across, and then plugging u back inside the problem. So that is what you should have gotten for the first one. The second one, very similar. Like I just took that 2x plus 5 and like added the squared on the x and moved it to the numerator. It's like a 2x in the denominator. Some things I want you to notice about this one. We're dividing by a monomial. And when I say monomial, we mean just have like one term, no plus signs, no minus signs. And this one's also kind of like a top-heavy function. So I want to find a way to simplify it. How do I simplify it? When you have a monomial, you just want to go ahead and divide everything you see by that monomial. And then just reduce and then integrate using the rule that you know. So how am I simplifying this one? In that first term, the 2's cancel out. X squared over x is just going to give you an x. The second one, you can leave it like that. I personally is going to rewrite this as 5/2 times 1 over x. We know that when we are multiplying fractions, we just multiply straight across. So 5 over 2x is literally the same thing as 5/2 times 1 over x. I do that just so I can avoid doing some u substitution and just make the rule a little bit easier to deal with. And then I want to go ahead and find the antiderivative. So x is going to become 1/2 of x squared. 5/2 is a coefficient. This is x to the first power, the natural log of the absolute value of x, and then don't forget your plus c. Questions on those first two problems from anyone here or at home?
Why isn't it a 2x on the inside of absolute value?
Because of how I split it up here. So like this is 5/2 times 1 over x. Like there's the 5/2. Then the integral of 1 over x is the natural log of x. And now for the bottom row. Again, to kind of get your thinking like I'm thinking and kind of as you approach these, I think the hard part sometimes with these problems is you do have to make some sort of decision often. So if I'm looking at number 3, there's definitely certain things that kind of stand out to me. Hopefully they stand out to you as well. When I'm looking at number 3, I see this as like a top-heavy function. We have a larger exponent in the numerator versus the denominator. I also see that the entire denominator is raised to the first power. So I know I'm eventually going to use a natural log rule. Well, how do I simplify that? I can't just divide everything by the denominator because it's no longer a monomial, but I can still divide things by simplifying it. How do we divide it? We are going to go ahead and do long division. So I have x cubed minus the 3x plus 2. This one I am going to kind of put in like a placeholder since that numerator doesn't really have an x squared term. I am going to kind of just squeeze in like a 0x squared just to make sure I line things up appropriately when doing the long division. And what am I dividing it by? I am dividing it by x plus 1. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start doing the long division. So again, I think x times what is x cubed? Well, x times x squared is x cubed. Multiply going around. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 1 would be 1x squared. Subtract. If you do it correctly, that first term should cancel out. It does. And then we just kind of keep repeating until we can't do it anymore. So 0x squared minus x squared will be negative x squared. bringing everything down. X times what is negative x squared, negative x. Multiplying around. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times 1 is negative x. Subtract negative x squared minus a negative x squared. Cancels as expected. Negative 3x minus a negative x. Negative 3x plus x, should have given me more space here, is going to give me negative 2x. Bring the 2 down. And then deep breath because we're almost done. X times what gives me negative 2x. That will be negative 2. Multiply going around. Subtract. 2 minus a negative 2 is 4. And that will be the remainder. So again, doing long division is often just like the first step. Like we haven't done any calculus yet. We haven't found the antiderivative. Why again did we do the long division? The long division allows us to take that integral that's a quotient and turn it into something that is usable and something that we could integrate a little bit easier. So how do I go back and rewrite my integral? So we have what was left over after dividing. So I have the x squared minus x minus 2. And then we're going to add to that the remainder of 4 and then what it could not be divided by. So I have 4 over that x plus 1. And then we do just want to go ahead and integrate each part. First 3 terms, pretty easy. This last one, do you want to check to see if I need to worry about u sub? Well, I have an x plus 1 in the denominator. U prime would just be 1, so I don't really need to worry about u sub. So that would become 4, the natural log of the absolute value of x plus 1 plus c. I think that one, like, I don't find a problem like that difficult. I know in the calculus teacher I'm saying that, so it's probably not a fair statement to say. But I do often find the mistakes in that problem are not the calculus. Like, people can get an integrand and find the antiderivative. The mistakes tend to show up with the long division. And not even like true mistakes, it's usually just like a careless mistake, like subtracting 2 numbers incorrectly or just messing up some simple mistake with the long division. Questions on that one before we do number 4? All right, and so then I put number 4 on here because sometimes we're just doing like a long division problem. Not a long division problem, a natural log problem, an integration problem, and like just like weird things happen, or maybe we can't just figure out a way to start it. So how my brain works when I'm looking at this one is I look at kind of like my denominator. I see the denominator's raised to the first power. So I think it's like a pretty good assumption that we're going to use a natural log rule eventually. And one thing I like to tell students, like if you don't know how to do the problem, like literally just try something. Like if you try u sub and things don't cancel out, then clearly you chose the wrong u, so you just want to go back and try something else to see if it will work. Now, normally when we do a natural log problem, we would let the entire denominator be our u. This is not what we're going to do for this one. I'm going to kind of show you why, but again, always try something if you don't know what to do. Our u prime, this is x times the natural log of x, so you would have to use the product rule. So you would have the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. And you look at that and you're like, whoa, all that is not canceling out with just the 1 that we see in the numerator. So that is not going to work. Often when your u prime is too big, you want to go back and find something smaller to be the u. So if I'm looking at this problem, you kind of have 2 options for your u. There's an x in the denominator, and then there's also a natural log of x. The whole idea with doing u substitution is you want the problem to become simpler to do. So if those are your options, which one are you more likely just going to want to get rid of? The x or the natural log of x? Natural log. I think that makes sense to most people. Like, we want to get rid of the natural log of x. It's the more complicated piece. So let's just try something. So u would be the natural log of x. What would u prime be? The derivative of the natural log of x would just be 1 over x. So let's go ahead and do our u substitution. So I have the integral of 1 over x. The natural log of x is going to u. And then I have dx is du over u prime. what was u prime? 1 over x, and that's kind of like in the denominator of that fraction. Simplifying that, what's going to happen to your x's now? They're going to cancel out. So we have like an x in the denominator times a 1 over x in the denominator. They are going to cancel out. And so this problem literally just becomes the integral of 1 over u du. What's the integral of 1 over u? The natural log of the absolute value of u plus c. What was u? The natural log of x. So it looks like a weird answer. But again, the u sub kind of works, but we end up with like the natural log of the absolute value of the natural log of x, which is kind of a mouthful to say. But that is how you would do that one. Again, chose that one because again, you just want it to be like, if it just doesn't make sense, like try something. Find some u to try, find the u prime, and hope that something cancels. If something doesn't cancel, or if u prime gets really ugly, then go back and just try something else. Mitchell, you had your hand up.
Yeah, how did you, I got kind of lost. How did you cancel out the x and the 1 over x?
So the way I thought about it is we have like x in the denominator times 1 over x, and I know x times 1 over x is just going to give you 1. Another way to simplify it, some students see it this way a little bit better, so I have 1 over x times u. Du over 1 over x, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as like multiplying by the reciprocal, so it's basically going to be like an x in the numerator times the du. I don't know if that's more or less confusing. Either way, the x is still going to cancel out, and you'll end up with like that same integral. Any other questions about that last one? Cool. Well, we lost a chunk of time with OneNote being a pain. But that's basically what I want you to be working on today, what you see on the screen. So I've assigned 2 homeworks so far, homework 0 and homework 1. Homework 0 is the AP review, and it's honestly not due until the day of your test, so it's probably not the highest priority for you right now. The higher priority probably is and probably should be homework 1. Did realize I forgot to include when I made that page in OneNote, I guess like a picture of like 2 questions. I forget which ones they are, but if you can't find that question on that page, then just pretend that I didn't assign it. I guess it wasn't important enough for me to copy over. That's probably the priority. That's what I really want you working on today. If you've already finished homework 1, or maybe you just want to get them out of the way, for many of you in this class, you do need to worry about the Unit 5 corrections or recovery. The corrections I will take any time between now and the day of your next test, which is going to be the 17th of this month. Make sure you do them in the correct format with like the Part A, Part B, and Part C. And then the recovery test options, again, this is mainly for people who need not just 5 points from the test corrections, but maybe a little bit or a bit more points. The recovery test, I'm going to have 2 dates for that during office hours. Either this Wednesday, which is probably going to be a little bit early. Most of you are probably going to be taking the recovery, again, if you need to, on February 10th. So that's what I want you working on. If you're at home, feel free to leave this meeting or stay in the meeting and, of course, ask questions. I'm here to answer questions.